Hey there, ACC fans. It is me, Kenton Gibbs, and my lovely co host, Candace Cooper, is clearly not here. It is somebody who is much more pale, with much less hair, and only slightly less pretty. My main man, Grayson Boone of Locked On Wolfpack, is here with me today. We told y'all that there would be some baseball. I told you. Candace might have been joking with you when she was talking about lacrosse and field hockey and all that. I don't know nobody who does that. So, I can't help you out there. But we do have Grayson Boone to talk how the ACC baseball season has gone so far, which teams have been good, which teams have been bad, who we're looking at surprised at, who we're looking at like, you're doing about what we thought. We've got all that and more on today's episode of Locked On ACC. Grayson, you ready?
I'm ready. Let's talk some baseball.
You know, you're moving up to the big leagues, as they say. You're playing with the big boys now. For those of you who ever,
I got called up to the show.
You got called up to the show. The show being Locked On ACC, and he lucky he got in here after we had 1,000 subscribers. I was here shooting in the gym, getting us there. But don't worry about it, Grayson. We're gonna give you your time on today's episode of Locked On ACC.
You are Locked On ACC, your daily podcast on the Atlantic Coast Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
So, Grayson, it's not that many folks that are, or let me not say not that many folks. It is not that many people who are deeply invested into ACC, college baseball in general, but particularly ACC baseball like yourself, right? You've been keeping up. You've been watching these games. You've been tracking some of these players. And so that's why I got you on today, because I didn't want to leave baseball out, because let's just be honest. I believe that we're one of the best baseball conferences in the country as well, right? I think that in terms of sports that you look at the ACC and say, hey, they're right there with anybody. I don't think that you could argue against men's basketball in March, but more importantly, women's basketball all year round. I think that those are the sports right there where you say, especially women's basketball, where you say, everybody else in the country, y'all got to come see us. Y'all got to come see us. Y'all got to come through us. But baseball this year has been phenomenal. Phenomenal. And so with that being said, I mean, what would you say? Because, of course, the SEC is right there as well, kind of butting heads with us and having some powerhouse of their own. But where would you put it in terms of 1, 2? Would it be 1A, 1B? What would you say in terms of us in the SEC? And is there anybody else that's in the conversation for best baseball conference?
Yeah, I mean, I do believe that the pride and joy of the ACC more than likely is men and women's basketball year in and year out. But I think there's a big case to be made for how consistently great ACC baseball is year in and year out. And this year is maybe a good enough example as ever. Across the board, these teams are very well constructed. They're very well executing across the board. There's a lot of very interesting storylines that, I mean, I watch more ACC baseball than probably I'd care to admit. And there's a lot of things that even I would have never predicted to see happen thus far this year. And there's still a whole lot of baseball left to be played. But in terms of ranking against conferences, I would put us up against the SEC. The SEC, they have the teams where they got dudes throwing 100, all 3 days of the weekend, which is ridiculous. The ACC is starting to get a little bit more attention in that way too. Miami has some flamethrowers. Virginia has some very crafty but super effective guys. Wake Forest has some flamethrowers. So ACC, the quality is always there, but we're starting to also match the SEC in terms of the electricity and the big names and the big games and the big moments, the video, the clips and the whole 9 yards. So I would put us up against the SEC. The Big 12 is always pretty strong, but I think your two premier conferences for college baseball is SEC and ACC, and you can rank them however you like, but this is Locked On ACC, so we're number one, baby.
Absolutely. That's what I love to hear. And now, when you name a conference as number one, when I named women's basketball as number one, I said that, hey, South Carolina is the best team in the nation by a lot. And they were, but for all intents and purposes, every game until Iowa decided, hey, we're going to give you all the space you want on the outside. We're not going to check anybody past the free throw line, which, tough break. But with that being said, I said that top to bottom, if each team played each other in women's basketball, the ACC will whoop the wheels off the SEC. And so with that being said, where would you rank these teams in terms of if we had to do a power ranking, right? And let's just be honest, some of y'all going to get mad. Some of y'all fans going to get mad at us. I don't care. We're doing a power ranking 1 through 10. We're not going through those bottom teams. If your team didn't get in it, I'm sorry. Tell them play better. Grayson, go ahead. Give me your 1 through 10.
1 through 10. I think 1 is a very easy answer in Wake Forest. They have a 3-headed monster in their starting pitching on the weekends. They go out there and they mow you down week in and week out. I believe right now Wake Forest is number 2 in the country. They have earned it. So they are very easily number 1 in my power rankings. Number 2, I think there's a couple different cases you could make here, but I'm going to go with Virginia. I think they have been consistently playing very high-level baseball. Virginia is known to execute at a high level. They're not going to commit very many mistakes for other teams to then take advantage of. They're going to pitch well. They're going to do very well in situational hitting. And this is another great example of all of that in this 2023 Cavalier team. So they are my number 2 team in the power rankings. Number 3, I'm going to go with Miami. They kind of had an interesting start to the year. They stumbled down at Florida. Florida's turning out to be possibly another powerhouse, but Miami's starting to pick up the pace. They are starting to gain a lot of steam as we're getting into, I guess, the middle half or middle part of the ACC schedule. Miami's going to be a team to look out for. I think when it's all said and done, they're probably going to be on top of the Coastal Division, I would predict. We're going to see how that turns out, but as of right now, they're number 3 in the overall power rankings. Number 4, and this is my surprise team for so far this year, Boston College. I can't believe I just said that. Number 4 is Boston College. I think Boston College is really good. And you haven't been able to say that for quite some time in baseball, but these guys just keep winning. They keep finding ways to win. They swept Kennesaw State on the road. They beat Tennessee on the road. They took care of NC State. They just took care of Georgia Tech. They just keep finding ways to win. They're all the way up on the national rankings at, I believe, 9. So they have a great resume. And on top of everything I just said, they find ways to win. I believe the other day they put up 24 runs on Georgia Tech.
24 runs on Georgia Tech, 24-12.
Football score.
And follow that
College.
Up. And I'm going to tell you what, Boston College, with the way their offense plays, 24-12 is absolutely a possible football score because they play some hard-nosed defense up there as well. That offense struggled last year, but that defense, I mean, they showed some flashes. They showed some signs when they got a little bit of run support from that offense. Get it? We're talking baseball, run support offense. Anyway, proceed.
I mean, listen, I don't want to sound too skeptical. I'm still kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop on Boston College this weekend, and we'll get into the big matchups this coming weekend. This weekend, they have Louisville on the road. If Boston College can find a way to pull that series out, they will have a humongous believer in this guy right here. I even maybe started it with a Boston hat on. I am a Red Sox fan, so I have that going at least. But Boston College, number 4. Number 5, I have the Tar Heels of North Carolina. They are kind of performing exactly how people thought they would. They're right in the teens, ranking-wise. Year in, year out, they're going to play solid baseball. They're going to make you beat them. They keep robbing home runs for some reason. Every time I see a major national clip of their baseball team, it's maybe the left fielder. Sometimes it's Vance Honeycutt in center field. I saw a clip of their right fielder. They just keep robbing home runs. And when you can't score on North Carolina, they're going to continue to beat you. So, they're chugging right along. They're going to be a solid team to watch. I would expect them to have a surge here as we get into the second half of the ACC season. But, North Carolina, the pride and joy of the ACC. Yet again, they're good in baseball. Wouldn't you know it? Number 6, NC State.
Hold on.
You cut me off.
Hold on. Before you get Grayson, I know that you're excited here. I know you're excited to talk some baseball. I know, but we got to pay some bills, all right? And we do that.
Got to keep the lights on.
Exactly. Keeping the lights on. You know what I mean? Duke Energy don't play. They need their money. So we got to do so by talking about FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are almost here, and now is the perfect time to download FanDuel, America's #1 sports book, because new customers get a no-sweat first bet of up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. And folks, I'm telling you, there are some great bets to be had out there. Who would have thought that LeBron James would only have 3 points at halftime in today's game against the Clippers, right? You could have made yourself some money had you taken that long odds. But just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Then you can bet on everything from money line to point scores and threes drained. Plus, FanDuel lets you combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with the same game parlay. So don't miss the chance to get your no-sweat first bet of up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon to learn more. Now, Grayson, proceed. And by the way, for anybody who wanted to say, oh, Kenton bought another NC State guy on, they're probably just going to blow smoke about NC State. Did you hear the team that he put before NC? Did you hear it? Did you hear it loud and clear?
These are very real conversations.
These are real conversations. People were being honest, okay? We might tell you a joke, but we'll never tell you a lie on this here show, Locked On ACC. Proceed with your number 16, NC State. Talk about it.
Yeah, sorry, I was about to blow through the FanDuel stop sign there.
You're good,
I have
you're
NC
good.
State
Talk
at
to me.
6. And to be honest with you, if they didn't just beat Louisville this past weekend, I think I probably would have had them at 8. NC State, they just keep finding ways to beat themselves. And it was kind of the theme last year, and it's starting to reemerge as a theme this year. They have the talent to win ball games. Like I said, you just saw they were able to take the series from a highly ranked Louisville team. They have the talent to get it done, but they keep getting in their own way. I think there's a lot still on the table for NC State. They're going to have to prove it, but as of right now, I have them at number 6. Gotcha. Number 7, I have Louisville, and obviously that is just because they only lost to NC State this past weekend. Louisville's been scuffling a little bit. I think that they will pick it back up here in the second half of the AC season as well. You know, they have strong pitching. They have offense that can be hit or miss at times. I think that they're going to be a bit more consistent here in the coming weeks. But as of right now, I have Louisville at 7. Number 8, I have Duke. And Duke is the team, you better not let them get hot, because the past couple of years, you've seen this Duke baseball team, they will pick up steam at like the perfect time at the end of the year, and then they become dangerous. And I'm starting to see elements in this Duke team this year. They could become quickly dangerous. So they might be at 8 right now. They could very easily jump up to like 5. If we were to do this next week, you could see them as high as 5. They're a dangerous team, and I think they're going to prove it here pretty soon. Okay. I have Duke at 8. The last 2 here, I have Georgia Tech at 9. They just got bamboozled by Boston College, or I guess ambushed, maybe is a better word. Georgia Tech, I thought they'd be having a little bit better of a season than they are. Again, there's still time for any team that's scuffling, still time for you to figure it out, unless you're the bottom 4 or 5 teams here, which we are not going to talk about. But Georgia Tech, I don't really know what to make of them, even at the halfway point in the ACC part of the year. They've had some questionable defense. The pitching's been all over the place. The offense has been spotty. Again, they have time to figure it out, but I don't know. They're a little bit of a question mark at the moment, so I have them at 9. And rounding out our top 10 in the power rankings, I have Virginia Tech. And again, this is another surprising team because they were outs away from making it to Omaha last year. They lost a little bit of production, but you had to think that they were going to be able to have another strong campaign here in 23. Hasn't gone like they thought it would. Hasn't gone like I thought it would for the Hokies of Virginia Tech. So I don't know. They're another one. I don't quite know how to categorize them quite yet. They've been beating themselves a little bit. I think they're going to turn things around here soon. They just had a great weekend against Virginia, but I don't know. It's kind of getting close to midnight for Virginia Tech. They're currently at the bottom of the Coastal, which again is super surprising with the team that they had last year coming into this year. But again, there's still time to figure it out. But I have Virginia Tech rounding out my top 10, and that is the power rankings as I see it on March, or not March. It's April now. Can you believe that?
Yeah.
April the 6th. Those are my power rankings as of April the 6th.
So let me ask you this, and you kind of got into it in terms of the teams that have been surprisingly good and surprisingly bad, but you also talked about how these teams can turn it around. So I want you to delve into for a minute here, which teams have series coming up that are like, this is a huge opportunity to have a turning point in your season, or this is this is a huge opportunity for a turning point for the better or the worse. Which teams are you looking at heading into this weekend series that you're saying that about?
There are some pretty big marquee matchups coming up this weekend, but there's a couple I have my eye on for sure. I already mentioned Boston College. They have to go on the road to Louisville this weekend. That is a humongous opportunity for both of those teams. Mm-hmm. Louisville scuffled a little bit. They're trying to kind of right the ship. They were predicted to be at the top of or near and or at the top of the Atlantic Division. They are currently not, as Wake Forest is occupying that top spot. But a lot of people thought Louisville was going to be in the mix. And again, they've scuffled a little bit. They're trying to find, or Waters essentially trying to find his level there. They got a tough Boston College team, the upstart Eagles of Boston College coming into town. And again, Boston College, they just find ways to win. They just keep winning. They had a shootout match with, I believe it was UMass on Tuesday night, and Boston College found a way to come away with that one as well. Even in the midweek, they're finding ways to pull out W's. So I have no idea what's going to happen in that series. But I can tell you I'll be tuned in because that has a lot of implications for how the Atlantic is going to shape out here in the next couple weeks. Another one I'm looking at is Virginia Tech and Duke. I just mentioned the struggles that Virginia Tech has, but there's still a little bit of time left for them to make a run here and right the ship. But they run into Duke, and Duke is starting to heat up. So that's a little bit of two teams that desperately have to have it. And, of course, only one of them is going to come out of there victorious. So that's another matchup to watch. I don't want to sound a little biased, but NC State has a humongous series on the road against number 2 Wake Forest. Like I said, Wake Forest, they're a monster right now. Number 2 in the country. It's absolutely deserved. They smoke baseballs over the fence. You name it, they got it. They have good pitching. They have good defense. They have speed on the base paths. They're solid defensively. They hit for a high average. They hit for a lot of home runs. Excellent team. You can expect to see Wake Forest hosting a regional, and depending on what kind of draw they get, they'll probably be in a super regional as well. That is how good Wake Forest is. I say all that to say, NC State, they have to find a way to either, I wouldn't say that one win would be a failure of a weekend for the Wolfpack going into Winston-Salem. I think winning one game, that'd be okay for them because they have more games that they can get later on down the road. But if they can find a way to pick off Wake Forest here, that's a big-time series win for NC State. So we're going to have to see how that shakes out. But those are my top 3 matchups. Actually, no, sorry, I have one more.
Go for it.
Miami at Virginia. Those are 2 Titans going at it this weekend. The pitching is going to be what I'm most focused on. Miami has flamethrowers. At times they can get themselves into trouble being a little bit wild, but the offense finds ways to overcorrect a lot of times for their pitching staff, especially of lately. Miami's been surging, and the offense has been humming. The pitching's been efficient, and they're going to face a very good Virginia team. So, again, that's a little bit of an unstoppable force. meets an immovable object. Those are my top 4 matchups to watch this weekend.
So number one, Miami is on the longest winning streak in the conference. And when we get back, we're going to talk about actually, let me not say when we get back. In just a second here, we're going to talk about the losingest team in the conference in terms of longest losing streak, because it's a surprise given that this was a team that was a tournament team just last year. Give me just a second. All right. So, Grayson, Florida State, right? I know we said we weren't going to talk a lot about the bottom teams, but a 10-game losing streak. I mean, and again, this was a team that I understand they fired their coach. I understand that you get a new coach, new system, lots of guys transfer out, all that good stuff, sure. But man, this is just getting brutal. What is happening down there in Tallahassee?
I think they've lost a little bit of confidence. You know, it's tough in the first year of a new coach to come in and immediately hit the ground running. But if anyone could do it, I think Link Jarrett could do it. You know, he is an alumni of the program. Right. So this is a big time job for him to achieve. Obviously Link Jarrett coming from Notre Dame last year, he took the Irish all the way to Omaha. He ran through Tennessee, who's the best team in the country at the time last year in the Super Regional, made it to Omaha. And now he is, I guess, come back home to run the Seminole baseball program. If you're a Florida State fan, you're listening to this, I would encourage you not to get discouraged. I think Florida State is going to be a team that maybe you won't see the success this season. Maybe you won't see it next season. But the way that they finish this year, I think could possibly provide a lot of momentum going into next year. I think Florida State is a team that can get really good really fast. Link Jarrett is an excellent head coach, and I think he's going to prove it to you. Again, it might not be this year. Maybe you just have to come to terms with that. But Florida State, I think they will return to the prominence as it feels like they've always had under the years of Mike Martin. Florida State's going to be okay. They're struggling this year. I know they're on a 10-game skid. They're fighting through it. It's year one of Link Jarrett. They're going to figure it out one way or another. And I want to kind of turn the attention to Clemson as well, because they're almost in a similar situation. They have a new head coach in Eric Bakich. I think he is also an excellent head coach. And I think Clemson will also turn their program around very quickly. Again, I just don't think it'll happen this year. And I know that's frustrating. There's still a lot of the year left, so feel free to prove me wrong. But Clemson and Florida State, it's funny they actually play each other this weekend. Both teams are just they're working through it. It's the first year of a new head coach, but it's two head coaches that I think are going to do excellent work at both schools. So don't get too down on the struggles this year. I think you'll see a lot of success in the future, but this year, just kind of grit your teeth and just keep rooting for them. They're going to figure it out eventually, but just keep pulling for your boys.
You know, somebody's got to win that Florida State Clemson series. Somebody has to do it. And watch something crazy happen, like two of the games get canceled, or one of the games get canceled and they both go 1-1. So technically nobody wins.
It could happen. I know there's some weather this weekend all over the East Coast that could potentially cause some issues. But one more thing on Clemson too. I thought they put up a really good fight last weekend against Wake Forest. Mm-hmm. I thought Clemson might have maybe should have had one more game than they did. But again, it's the ACC. Anything can happen, and that's baseball too. That's baseball sometimes. So yeah. It's unpredictable. It's crazy, but that is the magic of ACC baseball.
Absolutely. Well, folks, I told y'all that we would have some baseball. My main man, Grayson Boone, came on to talk some baseball. Grayson, tell the folks where they can follow you and find your work.
Follow me either at gboone_, or if you're looking for a Wolfpack fix, find Kenton and myself over at Locked On Wolfpack. The Twitter handle is _L_O_Wolfpack.
All righty. Well, You heard it here first, folks. There's some teams that should be turning it around soon. There's some teams that shouldn't be worried. And there's some teams that should be whamming the panic button. You heard it here on Locked On ACC. First, peace and love, y'all.
You are Locked On ACC, your daily podcast on the Atlantic Coast Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.